All right, welcome back to the channel. So we have got one of the best fights of the year coming up. Very meaningful fight between Jermell Charlo and Jeison Rosario. And Derek James, who's the trainer of Jermell Charlo, came out and gave his impressions of Jeison Rosario in the fight. And I'm telling you, man, it was really eye-opening. He talked specifically about what a terrific puncher he is, what a good fighter is, and how he continues to get better and better. I went back and watched the fights, man. I'm telling you, there's a lot to be said about what Derek James's position was, and we'll go through that. But also, I'm going to talk about Derek James and Jermell Charlo and what happens after this fight, if Jermell wins or if Rosario wins. Let's talk about those things in this video. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So, Jermell Charlo and Jeison Rosario are going to be fighting each other in a unification match on a doubleheader pay-per-view that's going to be on Showtime this Saturday, and I officially feel like boxing is back. With this fight, with this card right here coming up, boxing is back. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the form that boxing stays in, but I do believe that it's going to be the way it's going to be this way for a while. And although there's not going to be a crowd, my anticipation for this Jermell Charlo and Jeison Rosario fight is as high as if, there was going to be everybody in the crowd, man. So this is really, really a terrific fight that's coming up. And Derek James talked about Jeison Rosario because, the reason that I thought, before I tell you what Derek James said, I got to kind of set the stage a little bit here. The reason that I thought that fight was so significant is because it is the fight between Jermell Charlo and Jeison Rosario is because it's a unification of three belts, the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF, right? And pretty much does crown the guy that is the top 154 pounder. But it's also because this fight didn't take place. It's kind of like a buildup from the original big fight that could be made, which was Jermell Charlo versus Jarrett Hurd. Now, Jeison Rosario is a dude that is relatively new to the scene. So I'd watched him fight a couple times, but I didn't watch him with the intensity that I'm watching him now. Now, the reason why I went back and watched him just to make sure, like, this isn't something where, Jermell Charlo might, excuse me, I'm gonna adjust my mic, it's a little loose. That Jermell Charlo, my original thought was, I never really seen Jeison Rosario or hadn't really focused a lot on him. I saw him get knocked out by Nathaniel Gallimore, but I'd also seen him in some other really, really good fights, man. And once Derek James started talking about him, I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. Now, what did Derek James say about him that makes this fight, it changes the dynamic of the fight from one where it's kind of like it's just a unification fight to one where it really might crown the guy that is the best 154 pounder is, when Derek James talked about Jeison Rosario, he talked about his punching power, like just how violent a puncher he is. It's a terrific puncher he is, and that he's just an all-around very, very good fighter. And that he continues to get better every fight. He also talked about his defense and talked about how solid his defense was. Now, the reason that set into me, really stood out to me rather, is that Derek James was on a panel. I was on a panel with Derek James on Money Brown TV's channel. You can definitely go subscribe to Money Brown TV, man. It's a small channel, small LDBC channel that you'll see, they have live streams, later at night with fighters. You'd be amazed that the people that would come on these live streams. You get like Michael Nunn, Derek James, guys like that, who, actually come on those shows. You can really get an opportunity to talk to them very closely. So, and that particular evening, I was on the panel with Derek James and Money Brown TV, and I think everything boxing was on there as well. And I asked Derek James the question about Errol Spence Jr.'s defense and why do people think that that Errol Spence Jr. is so easy to hit? And why do you think that he doesn't really have, why do people think that he doesn't have really good defense? And so Derrick James' explanation was, that a lot of it is just very subtle angles, right? That, a lot of people confuse great defense with moving on your feet and moving out. Now I'm adding on and interpreting what he said, so this is not a direct quote, but, then people misinterpret, the angles up close and really don't see how Errol is slipping shots, how he's positioning himself, how his actual aggression is a form of defense, because his hands, he's so active that the other guy has to keep his hands at home or is providing, different openings. But I saw Errol Spence Jr. definitely in the Sean Porter fight in the inside, where people thought that he was really getting touched. He did get, now he got hit some big shots, but a lot of the times, most of the things are missing. But Errol's, after he misses, makes a guy miss, he is right in position to capitalize. And that is like on a second by second basis with all that pressure. So looking at, the fact that some people say, it's probably better to say it this way, that it was not so obvious what Errol Spence Jr.'s defensive strengths are. When I went back and looked at Jeison Rosario, I was like, yeah, I see a lot of the same things now that Derrick James pointed it out. Now, people that are familiar with the channel will know that I'm a boxing fan. I talk about the sport of boxing, but I'm not a boxing trainer, and I do not ever say that I would be able to break down a fight the way that Derrick James would break down a fight. So when he mentions something, or like a great trainer like Ronnie Shields or Buddy McGirt or somebody like that point something out, I'll go back and look at it, and it always educates me, enlightens me. And I suggest you guys do the same thing. So when I look back at Jeison Rosario, I was like, okay, I see what he's saying. It looks like he is plodding forward, but he's very defensively responsible at the same time, especially with covering up with that right hand, the right hand coming from the opponent, because he keeps hold that phone he keeps this very, very, very tight. So it's not very easy just straight up the middle to get a shot off on Jeison Rosario. Now, obviously the problem that could be with Jeison Rosario is the chin issue, and I think that'll come into play, but it was just very, very enlightening. So now I know that, hey man, this guy's a serious fighter. This guy's a threat to Jermell Charlo. So it's not just a situation where Jermell Charlo's just gonna, come beat up a guy that got lucky and beat, maybe, if you want to be insulting about it, a glass jaw. It's not just some guy that popped up out of nowhere who got lucky beating J-Rock, who's got a suspect chin. No, that this is somebody that was serious, that was consistently developing, ran off a series of very good fights to get himself in a position to fight for the unified 154-pound title, and he pulled it off. And now he's in there with an opportunity to unify again with the third belt, with the WBC belt. So, man, I'm really, really looking forward to that. But also, while we're talking about, however this fight turns out, but let's assume, for the sake of argument, that fight winds up going to Jermell Charlo, right? That, for me, if Derrick James, right then, Derrick James has to be in the lead for Trainer of the Year. Has to be in the lead for the Trainer of the Year, especially, and will solidify it if he wins, if he beats or gets his belt against Errol Spence beats Danny Garcia. The combination of those two fights, in my opinion, man, should lock down Derrick James for Trainer of the Year. It will be literally be impossible for anybody else to overcome that, except maybe if Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder happens in 2020, which it's not gonna actually happen in 2020, and Tyson Fury was able to beat Deontay Wilder again. Now, if that happened, maybe Sugar, whatever his name is, what is his name, man? Sugar Hill, maybe Sugar Hill would deserve it then, but nah, man, not in my book. I think that thing should go to Derrick James, because, man, this dude has really, really done a magnificent job with the two fighters that he has. Now, granted that Jermell Charlo was originally with Ronnie Shields, so Derrick James, had somebody that was well developed when he met Jermell Charlo, but that, in my opinion, only strengthens the argument that this guy should be Trainer of the Year, because he did two things. One is he built a fighter from the ground up in Errol Spence Jr. He and Errol Spence Jr.'s father, because Errol Spence Jr.'s father was definitely responsible for picking the trainers early in his career, and then settling on Derrick James. So that team has been together for a very long time. But Derrick James deserves credit for, as the trainer that was responsible for building one unified champion, and then being responsible for taking another fighter who was from somebody else's stable, adding to that fighter's skill set, adding to his weapons, and then getting him to the point where he unifies 3 of those belts. And those are both of the fighters that he's training. Man, without a doubt, man, that guy should be trainer of the year. And I think he's got a very good chance of that popping off for him. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. Make sure you share, like, subscribe. Thank you to everybody that supports on the Patreon. I'm gonna be back on my Patreon grind pretty soon. Y'all forgive me. The channel has just been really, really busy. Also, and I've been giving a lot of Patreon related content just straight out on YouTube. Shouldn't do that. But anyway, and much love to the channel members and all you guys. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm out. Peace.